Hello everyone, Richard Fredrickson here at Al's Steakhouse, and we're going to take a little piece of history from the greatest generation. We have a World War II and Korea veteran with us today, and we're going to share his story with you in a few moments. I will apologize in advance because this gentleman, to be fair, it would probably take us about 3 hours to get all of the information that to be able to share with you. We're going to see if we can condense it into a shorter period of time, but I guarantee you'll enjoy the visit. But first, my invite to you and yours to come to Al's Steakhouse. Whether it's for lunch or for dinner, this is the iconic restaurant of Joliet. At the crossroads of Joliet now, the way Joliet is situated geographically, it's almost in the middle of the city at Hamas and Jefferson. Great for lunch, for that business time, or maybe that just the two of you or the entire family. And of course, their famous Friday and Sunday buffets. You're invited. Come on down to Al's Steakhouse here in Joliet. You'll have a great time, great food, and great service. Bill Scholtes is our guest today, and thanks to a lot of people who kind of put this together. And I have to apologize in advance. I won't be able to get everything in here because you've got so many stories.
Oh, wow.
I went through 3 albums.
Oh, my God.
And I'm trying to remember just a few of the things that I saw in there. It's your family, your daughter, who I asked her name twice, and now I forgot the name again.
Zelinsky.
Yeah, she's Mrs. Zelinsky, but what's her first name?
Jean.
Jean. All right, we want to thank you. Back in the background there, you're beautiful. Thank you so much for the work you've done.
She takes good care of me.
Yes, she does. You look like you're in great shape. You feeling pretty good?
You. 92 years old.
Yeah, you're in better shape than I am. I can tell you that right now. I guarantee it. Well, let's start out with the family. First of all, your family, Bill. Tell me a little bit about your family.
I was the last of 11 children, and I'm the only one left. And my two oldest brothers, Fritz and Nick, were born in Luxembourg. And after Nick was born, the parents came to this country, and you had to have a sponsor, you had to have money.
Sure.
Anyway, my old man was a stone cutter, and he formed a stone cutting business and built a house, and we had a nice life going. But my mother died when I was a year old.
I saw a picture of you in the album.
Blew everything up, you know.
You're just a little baby.
Yeah.
What, 2 years old or something like that?
1 year old.
1 year old.
Yeah. But anyway, my family got split up. The boys got sent everywhere. My brother Pete got sent up to work on a farm in Wisconsin. We had a bootlegger in town called Fred Rube. I don't know if you ever heard that name.
I did hear that
K.O.
name.
Rube and all of the Rubes, they're all related to Fred. But anyway, K.O. Rube was my brother Heine's best friend, and when my mother died, Heine just moved in with the Rubes. Well, the old man was a bootlegger, and so he put Heine to work driving one of the cars, all on the bootleg. And you know, when Heine finally got old enough to get married, old man Rube gave him a beer distributorship as a wedding present, and Heine made his whole life out of that beer distributorship.
Well, good luck to What a great story.
He sold beer all his life, and at the very end of his life, he bought the rights to the liquor store on the corner of Rayner and Theodore from Tom Bannon. I don't know if he was a pharmacist.
Yeah, there's a great Joliet names.
Yeah, well, his old man built that building and ran the business till he sold it to my brother. And I worked for him. I was working nights at the liquor store.
But before that, way before that, when the family got broken up and people went different directions, what direction did you go to? Where did you end up at?
My sister Kate was 16 years old, and she held that family together for 5 years. Can you imagine that, a 16-year-old girl? Anyway, when she was 16 years old, some no good, I won't say the word woman, came and said, "This is not a decent place for that baby. Put him in the orphan's home." And that's when I went in the orphan's home when I was 5 years old.
Guardian Angel?
Guardian Angel home, yeah.
Wow. Well, I saw some pictures of you at the Guardian Angel. One quick story. We've got to get to World War II in Korea. You were mentioning just before we went on the air about a relative or a friend who used to race midget cars at the stadium, and he had the white LaSalle.
Oh, that was my brother
Okay,
Fritz.
your brother. Tell me about your brother Fritz and what he did for you kids.
My brother Fritz was, he was a case, that guy. Everybody in Joliet knew Fritz. You know, the policemen back in those days rode motorcycles, and they all had instructions. If the motorcycle don't run right, take it up to Fritz. He'll fix it. He was a character. And we used to race up in Chicago at the amphitheater every Saturday night. So I went with him, me and Don.
They were racing inside?
Inside,
Wow.
Yeah. By the end of the races, you couldn't hardly breathe, but that was another story. But anyway, that was what Fritz did. And when he was 60 years old, he was still racing stock cars out at the stadium, going round and round. He just couldn't quit.
But he did something special for you kids with his midget.
Oh, he brought it out to the orphanage and let all of us ride it, drive it, you know.
I don't know if you know what look it up, Google it, Google LaSalle, and you'll see what kind of a car that is.
It was a Cadillac.
Yeah.
You know.
That kind of a car. It was the car of the time, the LaSalle.
Yes. Oh, yes. It was great.
If I could pronounce his name, Dick Schuster, Poppy's collection of cars. We saw that, and there's a LaSalle, couple of LaSalles there in that.
Well, you know, the funny part of it, what the family does, my son Paul, my oldest son, he became a midget race driver because he idolized Fritz so much.
Let's quickly talk about your family now. Not all your siblings, but your sons and daughters.
Oh, I got 4 kids.
Yeah.
One of them, my son Paul, was an electrician, you know, all his life. Jane, she did a lot of, she's a teacher.
I could tell that.
Yeah,
I could tell that.
She was a teacher. And then my other daughter, she didn't want to become she told me, she said, we got to talk after she did 2 years of college. She said, I've got 2 choices. I can be a nurse or a teacher. And I don't want to be either one, so I ain't going back to college. Right now, she owns a big storage business down in Minooka.
That's good for her.
And the last one of my kids was the genius of the bunch, my son Nick. He went to Illinois, became an engineer, worked for an electric company called Tellabs, and I don't even know where he works now. He's vice president of some company over there. But his passion in life was flying. And if you've ever seen pictures of guys on a parachute with a motor strapped on their back.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, my son Nick taught that.
Wow.
He was the Illinois instructor for that business. He lives down in Minooka. And anyway, he said one night he had his class and they were flying along, and he said he looked over and there was a Cessna going by. And he said, I looked over at that Cessna and I thought, you know what? That pilot's a lot more comfortable than I am. To hell with this parachute. He went to the airport and said to the guy, I want to learn how to fly an airplane.
Cessna.
Right now, he's the #1 instructor down at the Morris Airport.
Great.
He's got 3 airplanes.
That's great.
He's quite a guy.
So you're pretty proud of your family then.
I got to tell you, one of his customers, William Shatner, Captain Kirk, knocked at his door one day. And he said, I'm going to be the master of ceremonies down at where they have the paint wars. And my people in Hollywood told me I have to make a grand entrance. And when we all talked about what's a grand entrance, they said, go in on a parachute. So he said, I'll do it. Where do I learn to do that? And they said, we got a guy in Illinois, and he'll show you. So we got a half-hour video at home of my son and Shatner going
landing.
Down. Yeah. And my son said, landed great, Dad, right on his ass. Just like you're supposed
we don't need to delete that out. That's okay. That's all right. Let me get to how in the world were you in World War II? According to my notes and what I read in some of the albums before Showtime, things were happening obviously, and you chose to go into I believe the Army Reserves. correct?
No, that goes in the Korean
Well, that's
War.
the Korean War.
Yeah.
So you were
I
drafted?
was drafted in 1943.
Okay.
And I was sent to Chicago, and we spent the whole day running tests to show you how the Army uses its talent. The last test of the day was a typing test. They wanted to know, does anybody type? And I held up my hand because I had a job. I was a billing clerk for a trucking company.
Well, that was
But I
unique in those days, a guy be able to type.
Well, they taught me that at Catholic High. Can you imagine that, giving me typing in shorthand?
I know exactly why you took that typing class.
I don't.
Because all those girls were in that typing class.
No, we didn't have any girls.
Well, that's right. It was all guys,
all guys,
back in those days. Yeah.
But anyway, I took this typing test. The guy handed out the papers and said, type this. So I typed it, and I took it up to the desk. And he said, what's the matter? Too tough for you? And I said, what do you mean? I said, it's not tough, it's done. Oh, he said, it can't be done, you just sat down. I said, look at it. I said, okay. And the guy looked at it, and he said, holy smokes. He said, you ain't ever going to leave this place. We need guys like you. So I went back to the barracks, and there was my name at the head of the list. Be ready to ship out at 7 in the morning. And I never saw another typewriter in all my days in the Army.
After that.
I wanted to tell you. That was how the Army works.
Where'd you end up at in the Army? What? Something about the railroads.
Oh, yeah. The day that I got drafted, they filled up the whole train with guys and sent us down to Texas. They were forming a new unit down there. They were already getting ready for the European War. And they were forming a railroad battalion. And we had all the guys on the train. They all became members of the battalion. And so did I. I went in and, you know, we started our training. We took our basic training at Fort Sam Houston, and it was very good training. And while we were taking basic training, which is mainly physical calisthenics and all of that kind of crap, you know, we were also spending part of the day learning how to run a railroad. And we built a miniature railroad out in the field. Put up big posts for each town. By that time, they had divided out who was going to be what kind of job, and I won the job of being the dispatcher. So we had this railroad we built up. I would write an order to an engineer. He would be standing there. I'd give it to him. He'd go to this first town, then to the second town, give him another guy one, and we learned to run the railroad on this field.
On a model,
yeah, it was
railroad.
But we were just walking it. You know, it was quite large. And our railroad was sponsored by the Pennsylvania Railroad, and they used to send executives out there all the time to watch us do this.
Now, here's something I think we forget. An army is without food and without supplies, without ammunition, without equipment, there is no army. So you have to have supply lines. What I didn't remember, you know, I think of supply lines, I think of trucks going up to the front.
Truck.
I never really gave much thought to the fact that you have to have, for the big stuff and for the big movements, you have to have a railroad.
Yeah.
I know back in the Civil War, they did a lot of that railroad stuff.
Yeah, we had,
but I forgot about World War II. So tell me a bit about the
Army
experience.
didn't forget.
No.
We left, we finished our training at Fort Sam Houston, and we shipped over to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, where we took what the Army calls our technical training. Now, in this phase of our training, we were actually sent out on the railroad that ran from Washington to New Orleans. We actually worked in the stations on that railroad with their station men, and they showed us all, you know, how the railroad runs. It was only one track, and it was the toughest kind of railroading you can do. One track going both ways.
Oh my God.
You had to get this train out of the way for this one, and every day, once a day, they had a streamliner going from Washington to New Orleans. And I'll tell you, when it was time for that to run, everything had to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I was the dispatcher, so I was going to be taught how to be a dispatcher. So I went into the dispatcher's office in Hattiesburg and told the guy why I was there. Well, he said, we can't teach a kid. to be, what are you talking about? You got to be 60 years old to be a dispatcher. And I said, we ain't got anybody 60
And we don't have time for that.
We haven't got any 60 years old. I'm it, show me. Showed me, I became a dispatcher. And I have to tell you, while our outfit moved from Fort Sam Houston to Camp Shelby, I got along good with the captain. I went in, I need 5 days off. He said, what for? I said, I'm going home to get married. Well, he was nice. He gave me the 5 days. So I went home. It was a total disaster. I got there. She was up to her elbows in tears. She was crying. What's the matter? She said, while you were on the train, my grandpa died.
Oh.
And my aunt said, we can't have a wedding. We have to have a funeral. Well, that didn't go so good. They said, postpone the wedding. I said, we can't postpone this one.
That wedding.
A boat over there is waiting for me. Yeah. So I told my then-to-be wife, I said, get in the car. We went down to St. Joe's Church, and I met a young priest down there that had just come in, told him my problem, and boy, he said, we can always fix that. Can you be here at 6 o'clock in the morning? I said, oh yeah, be here. We got there, he married us, bingo, trouble solved. I did something good right there.
There you go.
So then I got on the train and went to Fort Dixon.
Let me back up for just a minute,
Okay.
because the people need to know this, and we're going to show that picture. You married a beautiful girl.
Yeah, I thought so.
Dynamite. Today's description. What a cute girl.
She was something special, I'll tell you.
And through the years, I'm sure she was.
Yeah,
so
she
you
was.
get on that train, and you're heading
To Fort Dix.
to Fort Dix.
I got there, met the boys, they put us on a boat, and away we went for Europe. Very interesting. We went on a big convoy. You know what a big convoy is?
And a lot of ships.
A lot of ships, and around the outside, naval destroyers going round and round, looking for submarines. We made it all the way over there without losing a ship. It was great. We went from Southampton on a train. We're always on a train, you know. From Liverpool to Southampton. There they put us on a boat across the English Channel. 2 months after they invaded Normandy, our little railroad battalion, were in the war zone. We were in France, right behind the infantry. When the infantry would move up 100 miles, we would move up 100 miles. When they would move up 100 miles, we would
right
move.
behind them.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of supplies were you providing?
Ammunition, mainly.
Oh, my God.
General Patton was up there screaming for gasoline, and we didn't have any tankers. We had jerry cans. Did you ever hear of a jerry can?
Describe it.
It was a 5-gallon special-made can, and we filled those things and filled the boxcar with them and shipped it off to General Patton. Bring another car, load them up. The Germans, you know, we were the lead, when I say we, the 724th, we were the lead battalion in the whole string. And you remember the Battle of the Bulge from your history book? We were as close to the Bulge as you could get with the railroad. Anyway, General Patton finally won the Battle of the Bulge and took off after the Germans. They pretty much chasing them after that. And the Germans abandoned their tanks. They didn't have any more fuel.
And so?
And so we won the war.
Yeah. And did you use any of those tanks?
Did
the occupational army, did they use the German tanks?
Oh, I don't think they did.
No.
We had plenty of our own.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What kind of equipment, train equipment, what are we talking about? Just all boxcars and locomotives?
Mostly boxcars, yeah. And we had 4 companies in the battalion. Headquarters company, where I was, we ran the railroad. A company took care of the signals and the track. B company took care of the equipment. C company furnished all the crews, the engineers, the conductors, switchmen, like that. Now the B company had a derrick on one of the cars, was big enough to pick up a whole locomotive. We had all of the equipment we needed to build a railroad. When the Germans would come over and bomb one of our trains, we would send Big Baby up there, would pick up the locomotive, throw it in a ditch. A company guys would come in, rebuild the track, back in business. They needed that railroad, and we gave it to them.
And you're there from late 1943
Yes,
to what, 45?
until 44 when the war ended.
Now that's an interesting, well, I'm going to say point, but actually we're going to talk about points. When the war ended, there are thousands of people.
That was only in Europe. We had 3 million
Well, right.
men there.
Yeah.
It gets interesting right there.
Yeah, I bet it
because
does.
when the war ended,
The
it
European
didn't
part.
really end. It was only the European
Right.
war. We still had a war over on the other side.
Right.
Well, the rumors were flying hot and heavy that the ships were already coming to pick us up and take us over to Japan. And they figured it was already scheduled for November 5th of that year. We were going to invade Tokyo like they did Normandy. And they figured conservatively we would lose 1 million men. Now I have to tell you, we back up to the war ended, okay? Okay, now the war ends, we got 3 million men. They got to do something with them. Well, they can't send them all home because we still got another war to fight.
Right.
So it was kind of a hectic time for the Army. And in the meantime, they had to find something for us to do to keep us somewhat busy. The day that the war ended, we gave the railroad back to the Frenchmen. And they were so happy to get it. The Germans, were gone, and then now we were gone, and they got their railroads back.
They liked Americans, didn't they?
Oh,
back in those
well,
days.
look what we gave them.
Yeah.
Like, they should have. Anyway, one thing the Army decided to do was to form a softball fast pitch
I saw that in
baseball
your album.
tournament,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Our little battalion sent in a team. Our little battalion won the regional, won the sectional, won everything. We won up to the point where we were supposed to go to the Riviera because there was a 2-week carnival scheduled down at the Riviera, the high point of which was going to be the championship game in the softball tournament, okay? So we go into the boys in the, we're railroad men, so we go into the big shots in Paris and we said, we're going to down to the Riviera. And we intend to go in our own private car with servants. And they said, you can have anything you want. And we rode like kings down the way we went.
Here's a picture of that team, by the way.
Yeah.
As you talk, we'll show that team.
Did you see all of those things we won? Yeah. We won Anyway, we got down to the last 2 teams, the championship game, and we lost. We played against a guy who was a professional softball pitcher in the States, came from Alabama. Oh, was he good. Man, he'd throw that thing, you never hardly saw it. But anyway, we lost the game. So, show you how the world operates. Sadly, we trudged back to the barracks. We just lost. The guy is standing in the doorway. He said, you guys hear about the bomb? What bomb? They dropped the bomb on Japan today. We said, big deal, they drop a bomb on Japan every day. What's the news? He said, this was a different kind of a bomb. We said, what kind of a bomb? An atomic bomb. Oh, we got interested. What does that do? The guy said it blew the whole city away. Oh, we got excited. We said, turn on the radio, let us listen.
Sure.
Maybe something's going to happen, like the war's going to end. Well, the history, they didn't surrender, so we dropped another one. The second one convinced them, and they quit. Now we got a whole different problem. We got 3 million men, and they are going to go home. They ain't got any reason to go over there. The war's over there.
Yep.
So the Army came up with a deal where you had to earn points for your service, length of service, foreign service, stateside service. And the number of points you had dictated where you would be in the line to go home. I was kind of in the last part of the line because I was young. I wasn't in the Army that long, I was just a kid when So anyway, I find the cadre, I never did mention to you, when they formed this unit back in the early days, the Army forms a new unit by sending a bunch of experienced soldiers there. They're called the cadre. They're the skeleton crew of the Army, and they teach all the other guys what to do.
Sure.
Well, remember now, these guys are veterans, so it turned out they all had a lot of points, so they got to ship home first. We had to stay.
The married guys with kids, would that count also?
Oh yeah. We had one guy there from Tennessee, had 5 kids. He was 35 years old.
You know what's remarkable about you? Many things are remarkable about you, but your memory. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, and you're telling me about these guys who are pitching balls and in the railroad and describing all this stuff. It's remarkable.
Oh, listen, you should have seen. Remember, I was in the orphans' home. I got to be a real expert on oatmeal. I mean, it was a, you know what I mean? It was a terrible, terrible depression.
Sure.
And we did have food.
Yeah.
It wasn't great, but we never bitched. I never once in my life said a bad word about the orphans' home. They treated me as good as they could. They gave me food. They gave me, they took care of me. So anyway, what I want to tell you was when I went in the Army, the first morning that I got up and went to the mess hall, I opened that door and I thought I was in a luxury hotel. They had everything. Eggs. How do you like your eggs done? Bacon, ham, orange juice, grapefruit juice, cereal, dry cereal. I was the last guy out of the mess hall. I'm sitting there. Wow, and the other guys said, boy, this is lousy food. I said, you must all be nuts. I thought
You're the first one that is served in either World War II or Korea who said the food was great. So I guess the comparison to Guardian Angel,
well, that's what I'm, you got to look at life the way you lived it.
Right.
I mean, I had breakfast at the orphans' home where the whole breakfast was one bunch of grapes.
Yeah.
That was breakfast. Hey, you ate it and you went.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway,
now it's at the University of St. Francis, by the way.
Now this is only phase 1 of my military career.
I know, this is remarkable.
And the Army screwed me up on my last thing they had to do with me when we landed in New York and saw the pretty lady with the torch. What a wonderful feeling. You can't tell a guy how that felt. You got to experience it to see the torch and realize you're home. Anyway, we went over to the camp, and there's a guy standing in the doorway at a mess hall as we walk in for dinner, and he says, how do you like your steak done? And we said, what did you say? Steak? What's steak? We haven't had any since we left the States. He said, you guys are all heroes. We got a meal for you that you wouldn't believe. You get your steak any way you want it cooked. So we ate our steak. The next day, they put us on a train to go home. Now, you remember, I'm from Illinois. They sent me to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. I get up there, I said, Jesus Christ, one more day I'm going to be without my wife. I sadly get off the train and I walk down the steps, and who's standing on the bottom step? My beautiful wife.
How did she find that out?
She got my brother Heine, and he took her all the way up to Camp McCoy.
So she knew you were going to be up at Camp McCoy.
I had let her know where when I got on the train.
That's way up there,
going,
too.
Yeah. That's way up north.
Traveling in those days, that was quite a challenge.
My wife. Finally, I'm home. So I'm home. I went and I got a job. We'd rented an apartment. Everything worked. This company that I worked for was a big company, and it decided it wanted to sponsor a group in the National Guard. A lot of big companies did that, And so they started hooping it up among the employees to join this. It'll look good on your records and everything. And it so happened that at that time, the Army had a deal going on where if you were a first 3 grader in World War II, which was a master sergeant, tech sergeant, which I was, or a staff sergeant, you get an automatic commission. Well, I thought, geez, that sounds pretty good. A commission, my wife would have a lot more money to live on if they called me again. But why would they call me? The war just ended. There ain't going to be no war.
Right.
So I joined. I signed the paper. Big mistake, because shortly thereafter I pick up the news, North Korea invades South Korea. I said to my wife, you know what that means? No. I said, it means I'm in the Army again. And sure enough,
you were.
I was. I got my orders right
Because
away.
let's go back and describe that time, because in 1950, 51, I mean, you guys have all been dismissed. There's not much to the military.
I was working, yeah. I was just, I was an ordinary guy working.
You were working for the gas company at that time? Yeah.
And now all of a sudden.
So no military?
No military at all. I never went to a meeting. So now I gotta go. I had to drive all the way down to Edgewood, Maryland.
Are you a lieutenant at this time?
The commission makes me a lieutenant.
All right.
Now I'm the only lieutenant in the Army that never had any training as a lieutenant. They handed me the card and says, "You're a lieutenant." Oh, I am? So I'm a lieutenant. I go down there. They give us a brand new apartment. I had the wife come down with the kid, had all my furniture sent down. We had a nice life for 2 months.
And that ended.
And the war came. To me, the order came, you're going to Korea.
So as a reservist, now you're not in the train thing anymore.
No, I was in a group called the Inactive Reserve. And the deal was we were supposed to be the last people called.
You were the first.
We were the first.
Yeah.
But anyway, I took the wife home, put her in with her mother. She had to move back home with her mother while I was gone. And I jumped on a plane and went to Seattle. There was a fort up there called Fort Lawton. Everybody knows about Fort Lewis. That's the big Army camp. Fort Lawton is a little Army camp that processes guys going overseas. So I'm sent to Fort Lawton. And bingo, my name's on I'm going to leave in the morning. So I give myself a treat. I go over to the officers' mess, and I said, I'm going to have me a steak. I'm going to celebrate my last meal in the States. And I'm eating this steak, and I bit something hard. And I said, what the hell was that?
Oh, broke a tooth.
I broke a tooth. So I go over to the dental clinic. The doctor looks in my mouth. He says, oh, man, you got a real problem. I said, what's the matter? He said, that tooth that broke off was your pivot tooth on your denture. We got to wait and pull the roots out and then give you a new pivot tooth. I said, how long will that take? Oh, he said, it'll take probably a month. I said, you mean I'm going to be here a month? Yeah. Ooh, that's
pretty good news.
I forgot. So while I'm wallowing away my time in a month, what happened? History showed itself. MacArthur invaded Incheon. I don't know if you remember when that happened.
Yes.
Prior to that, all we had was a little city down on the south end called Pusan. And any officer that got shipped into Pusan got an infantry platoon and up to the front. That's all we had.
Yeah.
Well, now with MacArthur going into Incheon, all of the Koreans went up to join their group to try to fight him. We didn't have to do this anymore. So they load us up into a big convoy, jeeps, trucks, troops, weapons, and we motor up to Seoul, which is in the middle of the country. And we get to Seoul, and I got sent to a place called a replacement center because I was a lone soldier. I didn't belong to any group. You know, none of the replacements do. They need a guy, they send you. So anyway, I'm on the books in the Army as a chemical corps officer. I had come out of chemical corps in Edgewood, Maryland. Because back in the day when we were going to form this unit, it was going to be a chemical corps unit. Well, it never matured, but I did. They got me, I'm a chemical corps. So when I get to the replacement center up by Sewell, they said, where are we going to send you? We got to send you to a chemical outfit. Is there one around here? They looked in the book. There was an outfit in Incheon, a chemical outfit. They sent me over there. It was only 20 miles down the road. This was a great country. That 20 miles of road from Seoul to Incheon was the only paved road they had in the whole country. Can you believe that?
What did you do? What did the chemical, what kind of chemicals are you talking about? What do you do?
The job, the company that I got put in was the 69th Chemical, what the heck was our title anymore? 69th Chemical Smoke Generating Company. And that was our job.
Okay.
Was to smoke screen the whole port if an air raid
I
siren
got you.
went off.
Okay.
So we had emplacements all around the city. We could get that thing covered in 5 minutes. All these guys were on the phone. If we ever got an attack, we just pushed the button. All their phones rang. We said, fire them up. Bang, they start the generators, smoke. Plus, we also got the dirty job up at the front. Whenever they wanted to do an attack and they needed a smoke screen,
You have to go up there.
we had to go up there.
Yeah.
I didn't like it up there at all.
I would imagine you would not like it.
I
up
didn't
there.
like the sound of the bullets bouncing off the wall.
Yeah.
But hey, I was a soldier.
There's another story, and we'll do it briefly. In the Army, you make friends. Not a lot of friends, but you make some special friends. And you had a buddy in the Army.
I got to tell you about him. When I first went down to Fort Sam Houston, I buddied up with this guy. And he was from the cadre. He was a corporal. And I don't know, we just became buddies. They say, why? You don't know why. You just do it. So anyway.
What was his name?
Charles H. Smith.
Okay.
Everybody called him Smitty. Anyway, he says to me, you know, he said, they're going to pass out all of the rank and all of the titles pretty soon. And I said, well, how does that affect me? He said, well, there's one job that's open, one job. That's train dispatcher. That's a good job. It's the only good job that's open. The cadre got all the others. But they didn't have another cadre guy to take that one. One job was open. I said, so? He said, so you're going to get that job. And I said, well, how am I going to do that? He says, I'll show you. So that night when the lights went out, we went down to the bathroom, and he showed me how to do the Morse code.
In the latrine, you're learning what? Morse code?
Morse code.
Oh, my God.
And the book of rules, everything about the railroad, he taught me. Well, then when we had to take a test to see who was going to be the dispatcher, I won hands down. So I'm the dispatcher.
Now that's a story, Bill. Learning Morse code in the latrine.
I did it. Hey, you do what you got to do. But anyway.
A good guy, good buddy. And you stayed
He and I became friends, and we lasted as friends for our whole life. He just died this last summer.
Really? Oh.
We used to visit back and forth. He lived in Oklahoma, and I lived here. But every couple of years, we'd go back and forth. But anyway, the reason I want to mention Smitty is I got a 5-day leave in Korea. We used to there were 6 officers in our outfit, and we had the Koreans build us a house. And they built a house with 6 bedrooms. Each guy had his own bedroom. Very comfortable for being in Korea. Believe me. Well, we liked to drink. That was the only thing that you could do over there. You couldn't go to town at night. So we would always send one officer in the group that was going on R&R. And his job was to bring back a case of scotch. My turn came. I'm going to get my 5 days and pick up the scotch. So this one day I'm walking down the main street of Tokyo. Beautiful place, Tokyo. It's a nice city. Mm-hmm. And I come to the biggest store on the block, worldwide store. Everybody knows it. I'm going to go in and look around, you know. I reach for the door, and some guy pushes the door from the other side and walks out. Who do you think it was? Smitty.
Oh, my goodness. In Tokyo.
In Tokyo. And he had never told me that he was becoming a lieutenant. I had never told him.
That you were a lieutenant.
Standing at each other, we're each saying to each other, what are you doing with that suit on? Well, I'm a lieutenant. Quite a twist in the Army, I'll tell you.
I'll bet you.
And
that had to be quite like that.
I got another twist for you that before the Korean War, back when we were in World War II, when the war ended, we had this time to kill before you got on a boat to go home if you didn't have any points like me. So I had a Jeep and a driver, and every day we went and we did whatever we wanted to do. I played golf on the best golf course in Europe. You know,
Sure.
But I mean, we didn't have a war. They didn't need you for anything. They were trying to keep you busy. So I get this letter. I don't know if I told you. I got this letter from my cousin in Germany, and he had gone to Luxembourg and visited all the cousins. And he told me that this one cousin was now living in Paris. And he said, I know that you're in Paris, so here's her address, go visit her. So I get in the Jeep, and go over to this house. It was a little suburb, little house, not much. Knock on the door, the door opens, this woman comes out, looks just dead ringer for my sister. And she walks over to me and hugs me and says, cousin.
How about that?
I mean, just looking at me, she
sure.
knew.
She knew.
So she said, come in, come in. We visited, and she made me dinner. Oh, could she cook. So that every Sunday she said to me, you come on Sunday and visit. We have a visit. So I would go to the mess hall and get a nice big box of food and take it to her. Oh, they couldn't get much food over there at that time.
Now,
you know.
is that in Germany or Luxembourg?
That was in France, Paris, France. Paris, France. Anyway, one of the things that bothered all of the guys, they said, you keep talking about going over to see your cousin. How do you communicate with her? And I said, well, we talk French. Well, you don't talk French. I said, hey, I worked for the railroad back there. I had to talk French or we wouldn't have got nothing done. Well, they said, where did you learn it? I said, I learned it right there in the street. You just listen and pretty soon you know how to do it. And I said I had a good French dictionary in my pocket. Everything worked out just fine. They couldn't believe that. And you know, 50 years later, 50 years to the date, I took my daughter, her daughter, sitting over there, her two little daughters, and we all went to Paris. I showed my wife, I told her all those years we were married, I said, someday I'm going to take you to Paris and show you where I lived. And I took her. And I got her to the door of the Notre Dame Cathedral, and she started to cry. And I said, what's the matter? She says, I never thought I'd get here. But anyway, I had it arranged. I had everything arranged what we were going to do. My one, Jean's daughter, she fell in love with the Eiffel Tower. She would go up the tower and she didn't want to come down. But anyway, one of the things I had arranged was that from Paris to Luxembourg City, we were going to go on the train on the same railroad that 50 years earlier I had been the dispatcher.
What a historic time.
So there I went.
Memory lane.
We went to Luxembourg City. We got off the train. There was a whole room full of cousins standing there saying hello to us.
You know, Bill, as we close, after the war, after Korea, you're back in Joliet, I believe. And are you back with the gas company?
Yeah.
People's Gas at that time?
Yeah.
Now NIGAS, I guess it's called?
No, People's Gas. People's Gas is its own company just in the city of Chicago.
Okay.
Nicor
that's right.
outside.
Outside.
But anyway.
It's still People's Gas.
In Chicago, yeah.
So you were there how many years in People's Gas?
40 years.
40 years. No one's at a company anymore for 40 years. It's amazing.
My time in the Army counted.
All right. All right.
But anyway, I stayed with the company. And fortunately for me, the company merged with Natural Gas Pipeline. Before that, they were separate companies. Once they merged, boy, things changed. I had new bosses. They promoted me. Pretty soon I was the boss. It was interesting.
Just like being a lieutenant.
Yeah.
That's
it's
like
the
being
same
a
way it
lieutenant.
worked. Yeah.
We have to close things off here, and I apologize because there's so much more. We just hit the top of the mountains on World War II and Korea and his experience. Well, I want to share this with you. This great gentleman here is a part of that great generation, and we're so proud to have you on the show and privileged, and we thank you for your service. And are you at all active, or have you been with the VFW or American Legion in town?
Oh yeah. I'm a life member of
Are
the
you?
VFW, yeah.
Well, that's
Me
great.
and my buddy, who also served in Korea, from Joliet, we used to go every Thursday night. That was our night.
Who
Our
was
wives
this?
knew you didn't do anything on Thursday night.
That's when you went.
We went and had 2 beers and solved the problems of the world and went home.
Great. What was his name?
Jack Tezak.
Jack Tezak.
Yeah.
Good Joliet name.
Yes,
Also
it
good
was.
Joliet name.
Anyway, I was going to tell you, my commission ran out. I was clean of the Army. There was nothing to do with me anymore. But I got one more interesting thing connected to the Army. I got to go on an honor flight.
Ah, yes.
I'm sure you've heard of those.
Well, I've been there, and when they come into Midway Airport.
Oh, yeah. Well,
When
man.
did you do your honor flight?
Oh, it
What
was
year?
several years ago. And everybody had to have a pusher.
Yeah,
Who was my pusher? My daughter.
your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, how great that is.
Yeah. Somebody had a bright idea. They said when those guys get there, some of the guys are going to need wheelchairs, and it's going to slow everybody down. The other guy said it don't have to. Put them all in wheelchairs.
Yeah,
So that's what they did.
yeah. Which is good, because that's a long day.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really long, early in the
But
morning, and then you come
yeah.
back around 11 o'clock at night.
They put us all in, and the monument is quite large,
Yeah,
and it moved right along with the wheelchairs.
Yeah.
We had box lunches in the buses when we were going to
well,
different
they've got
places.
that down pat.
Yeah, it's
Volunteers and
oh.
organization, honor flight. If you have someone from, now I think they're accepting Korean War veterans.
They are. They just started this year.
So if you're a Korean War veteran, or you're a family member of a Korean War
Yeah.
veteran, you get in touch. I don't have the information. We might have it for you.
Oh, it was
for
great.
honor flight.
Yeah.
It's a great event.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great to
Yeah.
have you here, and an honor to
Well.
talk with you. And to all the veterans out there, we salute you. We thank you for your service, and we'll see you next time.
I appreciate it. Thanks.